morning. It's good to see you this beautiful Monday. I hope the week is kind to you. Thank you very much for joining us on My Doctor. My name is Winnie Lubamba. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Now, as we all know, that diabetes is one of the most common and costly chronic disease. And once seen as a disease of the affluent societies, it has become, a growing problem in developing countries. And this has been accelerated by a large number of obesity cases in the country and, of course, in many African regions. So the question is, how is that possible? Because if you look around, you find that most people, especially in the African continent, live below $1. But then again, the cases of obesity is on the rise. So how is that the case? And how does that amount to diabetes? Because that is our focus of discussion today, that is on diabetes. So don't worry, of course, we'll have that and much more on our show today. So what you need to do is call in live. Of course, we're live, so that means you can call in and ask any question that you have in regards to the topic. But before that, take a look at this video on type 1 diabetes. Right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. Remember, this is My Doctor. My name is Winnie Lubamba, but of course, always a pleasure to have you on board. Now, just a reminder that of the estimated 1.5 million deaths that occurred in 2012, more than 80% occurred in low and middle income countries. And we want to understand, why is this the case? And how is obesity related to diabetes or vice versa? Like I said, not to worry, because we have a doctor here, of course, to help us better understand what exactly is diabetes and why is it that it is very high in low and middle income countries, and what can we do to ensure that we reduce the numbers. But then again, like we said, if you have any question in regards to the topic, feel free to call in live. The number is 0791 478990. And of course, Dr. here will answer all your questions. So let's meet our doctor for today. Good morning.
Morning.
How's Monday?
Monday is cool.
Coming along? Yeah. No Monday blues?
No.
Okay, we refuse Monday blues.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you so much for coming over today.
Thank you.
And before we get into the discussion, kindly introduce yourself.
My name is Festus Kamau. I work with MPSHA, and I am a diabetic nurse educator.
Okay.
So what I do day in, day out is working with people living with diabetes. And I work in MPSHA Hospital, Nairobi.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, starting with the question,
Yes.
like I said, obesity is on the rise, especially in Kenya. I mean, we see so many cases of obesity, especially in women.
Sure.
But then again, when you look at the statistics, we find that, many of the, people in the African continent live below $1. So how is that the case? Is it that tumia chakula managu and all the traditional foods, or what is happening?
Sure. When you look at it in our current and present times, okay, people have really deviated from what used to call, or the foods that we used to eat, which were the very best. And many of us have adopted the Western lifestyle, mm-hmm, where we eat foods that are highly industrialized or processed, yeah. And then we are not exercising. In fact, up to the place in the villages, almost none is walking, because with the introduction of boda boda, it has made it easy for us to move yes, from one point to the other. Yes. So we no longer walk, mm-hmm, no longer exercise. In the offices, we just sit, come in the morning, sit until 4 p.m., mm-hmm, only probably wake up like 2 or 3 minutes in the course of our work. Okay. And then we drive back home. Mm-hmm. So largely we are not exercising. And so that has really contributed to people gaining weight gradually, mm-hmm, which has caused us to become overweight and obesity at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And obesity is a large contributor to diabetes. Yeah.
Yes, of course, we'll discuss that and much more. Yeah. But going back to the basics, because we always talk about diabetes, but I think most of the time we don't really take time to understand, yeah, what diabetes is all about. Yes. And so let's start with the basics, diabetes, yes, and yes, then why is it classified as a disorder of metabolism? Okay,
diabetes is a chronic disease. And when I say chronic disease, actually we are stopping, moving outside calling it disease to a condition. Okay. Because it's a condition we live with long, and that's why we call it a chronic condition. Okay. We live with it long. And the condition is characterized by high blood sugar, mm-hmm, in the blood, and this comes as a result of our bodies have the inability to break down several foods, our carbohydrates that we eat, and the fats and the proteins. So the body is not able to largely break them down. So you find it's not actually only one particular type of food.
Yeah.
It is actually several. And that's why it becomes a syndrome, because it is a cluster of things happening together. So that makes it even to become a complex condition, especially diabetes type 2. And the reason why we classify it as a condition which is in the metabolic point is because of that cluster of syndromes happening together. And then you find that diabetes is found also among, high blood sugar is found among other clusters that are metabolic in nature, like our cholesterol going up, weight gain, and all these issues together. So that's why we classify it as a disease of metabolic origin.
All right. And talking about calories, you see, most of us, I mean, seafood ni food too. I mean, and we consider it in terms of iko na mafuta mingi ama haina mafuta mingi. All right. So we don't really care so much about the calories and all that. But from what I understand, there are good calories and bad calories. So talking about calories, can we classify them according to the bad calories and the good calories, so that the next time we go, probably want to take fries, or we want to take whatever food that we want to take, of course, we also consider calories.
Okay, so from the beginning point, everything should be taken in moderation.
Yes.
Okay? And so when we go, even if I go to take fries, there's only a particular limit I should take.
Okay.
But that's not the case, because usually we take to feel the hunger and fill our stomach. So we end up feeling until the satiety levels have come to place. And all of us have different satiety levels. And now when you come to those which are bad and those which are good, now, like when I take chicken, so I get outside here and I'm in a hotel somewhere and buying chicken. So the cholesterol levels in that particular meat, in that chicken, will be found in the skin, which appears to be sweeter.
Yes, actually, most people like the skin.
And that's why we advise that when you're preparing the chicken, then you skin it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that you reduce the cholesterol amount in that very particular meat. So you eat the muscle part of it, you skin out the skin, so that you take away the amount of cholesterol in that. And other places you get, cholesterol, you get it from the fats that we use. So there's these fats that you get from, the solid ones that we chota with our kijiko and then we cook with. They tend to have higher levels, amount of cholesterol. As opposed to the liquid ones. And then again, the liquids on, where are they coming from? Those are coming from corn, those coming from olive oil and such. So depending from where it's coming from, whether corn, olive oil ranks the best. It has very reduced amounts of cholesterol. And then followed by sunflower and corn oil and such. So even the fats and the oils you're using to prepare our food matters a lot in terms of what we get into the body as the bad calories. And again also in terms of the good calorie, because we also need the amount of good calories. All
right. Now, and of course, when you talk about olive oil and all that, I mean, the reality is not everybody can afford it. But bottom line, what you said is moderation. All right. There's also an aspect of pre-diabetes. And someone might be like, okay, so what exactly is that?
Okay, pre-diabetes is the position where you are in between the normal blood sugar and what you call overt diabetes. Overt diabetes meaning that for sure how you have presented to us is sure that you have diabetes. So the stage in between is what we call pre-diabetes. So and there are particular ranges that we look at when you come to the hospital. We look at how your blood sugar has risen up. There are several tests that we do, like fasting blood glucose, and we look at it at a particular range. If we see that it's within that particular range, then we tell you that you are pre-diabetic. And what we have to tell you is that several things that you do to prevent you progressing to diabetes.
Okay, all right. And the question might be, so how do I determine whether I am pre-diabetic, diabetic, or neither? But like you said, you go to a hospital, and of course there's that range where you check. But then again, you talked about the normal amount of blood sugar in the body. What exactly is it? Like, how much would you say this is normal? And then when it's lower or higher, then you are diabetic.
Okay, the normal person who is not, doesn't have diabetes, our blood sugar should be within 4.5 to around 5.5.
All right.
So within that particular level, we term you not diabetic. But when you begin to move from 5.6, 6.0, 6.1 to 6.9, that's the point where we look at you as pre-diabetes.
Okay.
So, and that is when you have not eaten anything, especially when you wake up in the morning. At least you've stayed for like 8 hours, you've not eaten anything. And then we measure your blood sugar, and you find it is within that particular target. And now from there, we begin to go now to diabetes.
Okay.
Now, how would I determine whether I have pre-diabetes, diabetes, or neither? Now, the greatest challenge with pre-diabetes is most of the time you do not have even sign.
Yes.
So you may be walking normally, nothing is happening until you get to a place where your body begins to communicate to you when your blood sugar has really gone up. And you begin to get signs and symptoms. And the classical signs of diabetes, which will be that one will be so much thirsty, and so they need to take a lot of water, which is more than the usual. Usually, a normal person will take not more than 2 liters.
Yes.
And even many of us don't even get to 2 liters.
Yes, 2 liters, yeah.
And so, but you hear someone telling you that I even finish 5 liters.
A day?
A day.
Okay.
Or even less than a day. Okay. So that clicks something to me. It is not a good sign. Then the amount they take, they will also have to remove it from the body. Okay. So they visit short cough for many times.
Many times, all right.
Many times. And then you also find this someone telling you that they have unexplained, unplanned weight loss. So I'm a person here, the way I am, but I just begin to find that I'm losing weight.
All right. And you're not
and
exercising.
I've not planned to lose it, and it's not even planned. Okay. So, and then you hear someone begin to complain of fatigue and all that. Above other, those are classical. And now other things like blood vision, infections, those are non-specific signs and symptoms. Right. So when you begin to find there are some of these signs and symptoms, quickly you would want to run to a doctor who would actually check and see whether you have diabetes. But over and above, it is also recommended that we keep on checking on ourselves.
Yes.
So that, because if peradventure I'm at pre-diabetes state and I don't have a sign, how else would I actually know? If not me presenting myself regularly to a hospital or to a health institution where they can actually measure my blood sugar and actually find it. And usually most of the people who come for those routine checks, we catch many of them. All right. And we give them the advice, and they are actually able to revert or actually prevent progression to diabetes.
All right, so how frequent would you advise people to go get checked? Because I mean, us, all right, most of the time, we only go to hospital when something is really, really bad, all right? So how frequent would you advise people to go to get screened or even checked so that we prevent you from getting to the pre-diabetic or the diabetic stage?
It's advisable that at least every once a year you do some health checkup. So that way you'll be able to capture anything that would be happening. And especially when you begin to advance in age, so the more the reason that we need to visit a health institution for this screening.
All right, like in your 30s, and then your 40s, and then your 50s. All right, go get screened. All right, now you talked about some of the signs and symptoms, but let's talk about what causes diabetes. Because most of the time, I think most of the people that I've talked to are like, mi najua hiyo ni genetic, so iko kwetu, so mi niko sawa. All right, so what are some of the causes, aside from it being genetic, what are some of the causes of diabetes?
So there's no specific cause that you can attribute to, but it's linked to many factors put together. So that that would contribute to development of diabetes,
Right.
type 2 diabetes specifically, because there's a difference between type 1 and type 2.
Yes.
So specifically talking about type 2 diabetes, among the factors that we have seen largely contribute to the development of type 2 diabetes, one, obesity,
Right.
weight gain. And so it is expedient for me to actually watch on my weight.
All right.
And if I find that the bar is climbing, then I need to actually get advice so that I'm told where should my weight be in relationship to my height or the length of my bones. And then if I am overweight or I have obesity, then I need to begin to see how I should bring down my weight to the levels where it's supposed to be, because obesity is a factor. Then age also, ethnicity. So we see in some ethnic groups diabetes run than others. Reasons we may not be able to tell. There are some attributes of genetics, and so that's why we ask the question, does it run in your family? Because we know if it's running in your family, probably you might have inherited that gene. Other issues like smoking, and that's why we advise people to stop smoking. So if someone is smoking, we advise them to begin small steps towards cessation of smoking, because it has some great contribution into what we call insulin resistance, which later contributes to diabetes.
All right. Okay. And you talked about type 2 and type 1. But before we even distinguish, how do I know that I have type 1 or type 2? And I mean, what makes it type 1 and type 2? You talked about age.
Yes.
What age are we more susceptible to, getting diabetes? Because I have seen like a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, child with diabetes. So does it have like a specific age where this person is more susceptible to getting diabetes, or depending on the type?
So diabetes can occur at any age.
All right.
And whether type 1 or type 2,
all right,
it can occur at any age. But when we look at how many people have presented, we usually find that the type 1 diabetes occur children of age less 18 years and below.
all right,
And then there's the age between 18 years up to around 35 years to 40. Then there's another age that happens around there and people get diabetes. And then from around age 40 and above, much more of type 2 diabetes. But it is important people to understand that they can crisscross at any age. They can crisscross at any age. But you find that the numbers of people who develop type 1 diabetes at the ages of 40, the numbers are lesser as compared to when they were younger. As also compared to type 2 diabetes, the numbers are a little bit lesser. But we are seeing also many type 2 diabetes even occurring at a very early age, 25 years of age. But those many times, long time used to see 35, 40 years, 50, 60 and above.
all right.
So, and you also asked how would I know that I have
Type 1 or type 2, or what makes it type 1, and what makes it type 2?
Okay. So type 1 diabetes is different from type 2.
Okay.
And in type 1 diabetes, there is actually no production of insulin.
At all?
At all.
All right.
And there are many things that are connected to that. And that's what makes it to be, type 1.
All right.
There's no production of insulin. And also, again, when you look at the people who get it is of the younger age. The children, less than 18 years old, that we find a big number occurring from, that level. Then when you come to type 2, as I had mentioned earlier, it's actually a multi-complex issue.
All right.
Because there are many things that are interconnected with it. There are gene issues that are discussed around it. There are issues with insulin resistance. There are other issues with the body is not able to produce insulin that is enough to meet the demand of the blood sugar in your body. Or your body is able to produce enough, but is not able to utilize that particular amount of insulin produced, or both. Both situations can occur. So that gives us the difference between type 1
and
type 2.
Okay, all right.
Diabetes.
And there's another type, which is the gestational diabetes.
So the other type is the one that occurs when women of reproductive age, they're expecting, so occurs in between. So, and those are the three most common. Other than now, other types of diabetes that could be related because of other issues like autoimmune diseases, drugs or medicines that we take. Some of them can contribute to diabetes and such. But the three, type 1, type 2, and the one that affects women of reproductive age, they are the very most common.
All right. And talking about gestational diabetes, does it affect all women?
No. Not all women would be affected.
Okay.
But also, we know back at, from our medical perspective, we know that it's a risk. Pregnancy itself is a risk, poses a risk. So, and that's why we are keen to check on diabetes during pregnancy. Yes.
All right. And so at what stage would you say gestational diabetes happens? Is it at the first trimester, the second trimester, or the third? And what triggers it? Because like you said, it happens, of course, during pregnancy.
Yes.
And doesn't happen before.
Yeah.
So probably someone might be like, especially when you go get screened and you find that you do not have, you're not pre-diabetic, and of course you're not diabetic. And then you get pregnant, and then all of a sudden you're diabetic.
Yeah.
And that is the gestational diabetic. So what triggers it?
Okay, so beginning with the first question, at what time did it occur? So usually you find it occurring from second trimester, third trimester going up.
All right.
So if a woman is expecting and we capture diabetes at the first trimester, the very most likely thing is that she was having pre-existing diabetes, probably it had not been picked.
Okay.
But because now she's pregnant, that caused it to progress further and even to show signs and symptoms. So from second trimester, third trimester, that's when we begin to see gestational diabetes. And that's why we actually begin testing women who are expecting at that very particular time. And so usually what happens is that when a woman is expecting, there are hormones that triggers. And what happens is that they begin to get what we call insulin resistance, which now progresses into them having high blood sugar, and that contributes to diabetes in pregnancy.
Okay. And are there, let's say, women who are more susceptible to getting gestational diabetes as compared to the others? And the other question is, does it go away after pregnancy?
Yes. There are women that are more susceptible than others. And for instance, if a lady before she was expecting, she was obese. Obesity on its own was a risk factor for diabetes. Now, again, she comes in, she's pregnant. So obesity, pregnant. Now, if she was obese, she was hypertensive, probably she could have either known or not high cholesterol in it. Maybe she smokes, we don't know. So all those put together, if it's a lady and has all those things put together, poses higher risk than a lady who doesn't have, that, that weight, and doesn't smoke, doesn't have issues with cholesterol, doesn't have hypertension. So if you compare this lady who has all these things put together, poses a higher risk of getting gestational diabetes than the other. Now the other question is that does it go after
the baby is born?
Baby. Now, it is expected that it would live. But also, we also advise the women that diabetes would occur. The chances of this lady getting diabetes after they had gestational diabetes is higher than a lady who didn't have diabetes, there before, or didn't have gestational diabetes. So usually it's women who have had diabetes, gestational diabetes, they have 50 to 70% occurrence of type 2 diabetes later in life, expected to around 15 years of life. And what you usually advise them is that they have to be checked. So this is what happens is that after they have delivered, between the 4th up to the 16th week after they have delivered, we need to follow them very closely so that we keep on monitoring and checking whether their blood sugars have normalized. If they have not normalized, then we move on with treatment. If they have normalized, then we advise them to make sure they're following up with their diabetes doctor. And after every 3 years, they have to do a full checkup of diabetes to make sure that they have not, they are not, tending towards
type 2
diabetes. Yeah.
All right. And what of those who are already diabetic?
Yes.
Either genetic or any other way, and then they want to get pregnant. Is that a high risk for them to maybe develop another, and that is, let's say if they're type 1 or type 2, all right, and then they get pregnant, are they also going to get the gestational, diabetes? Or is it a risk for the child?
Okay, so for a lady who was having diabetes before, we term that one as pre-existing.
Yes.
So the pregnancy will be in the pre-existing diabetes.
All right.
Okay?
Yes.
So even though we treat it as, because the pregnancy is within diabetes.
Yes.
But the other one is the diabetes that happened within when we are catching
you're pregnant.
When you're pregnant.
Yes.
So we look at them differently, even though treatment would not really be so much different, because we look at them as diabetes at the end of the day. So, but if a lady was having, like, let's say, for instance, type 1 diabetes, and she wants to conceive, of course, now for us, the advice would be this lady to conceive is not like any other lady who didn't have issues with diabetes. So for them, we'd approach it very differently, and they have to go through what we call pre-conception counseling. So that they go through various steps to make sure that they are ready to conceive. And again, if a lady had diabetes and it is not well controlled, and then they conceive, that poses a higher risk to the fetus or to the unborn child in the fetus.
All right. Yeah. Of course, would also need you to take us through some of the steps during the counseling.
Yes.
Yeah, period.
Yes.
For them, and of course, some of the steps they need to take and the plans and all that. But of course, we need to take a very short break.
Yes.
But when we come back, we'll delve into that and much more. So stay with us. And of course, like we said, if you have any question, remember to call us live. The number is 0791 478990. So we're taking a very short break. We'll be right with more. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Glad you are still with us. This is My Doctor, and today our focus is on diabetes. And of course, before we went for break, we talked about type 1 diabetes, which is actually production of no insulin at all. Yeah. And then there's type 2, where the insulin is produced, but it's not enough, or even if it's enough, the body is not able to process it. And we also talked about the gestational diabetes, which happens during pregnancy. And like we said, we are live. So if you have any question in regards to today's topic, then feel free to call in live. Festus is here to, of course, answer all your questions in regards to diabetes, and the number to call in live is 0791 478990. Whatever question you have, of course, you will get the answers here and now. Now, Festus, before the break, we were talking about some of the steps that women who have pre-existing diabetes, go through to ensure that, they take care of themselves before conceiving. All right. So what are some of those steps?
So the preconception counseling involves many steps. One, we help the lady to understand what diabetes is and what it involves. So that's the first step. And so we go through helping them to make sure that they have accepted, and they are also ready to take through the pregnancy, through the 9 months. And we also talk the issue of management and control of blood glucose. So we teach them how to measure their blood glucose at home, and we also give them target ranges, which they are going to make sure that when they measure their blood sugar, they are going to make sure that it is within those particular targets. Then we also teach them how to record and how to interpret those results. among the other things that we go through is nutrition, and then we go through now pregnancy, and the tests that we do at any particular point, we go through up to delivery, and then we also talk issues after delivery. And also we also tell them what would be the complications both to the mother and to the unborn child when they have diabetes, and especially if the diabetes is not well controlled during pregnancy, what risks it would pose to both the mother and both the child. And then, of course, now they have to keep on regular appointments with us during the 9 months period of their pregnancy. And also we plan the delivery mode. Is it through normal delivery or will it require surgery? So all those things we discuss alongside all that, so that they, before they conceive, they are able to make a very informed decision. And they know that when they are going in to conceive, there are several other things to go with. Because for a lady who is not having diabetes and they just need a baby, they just go for a baby.
All right. Yeah. Okay, and we have a caller on the line, Nelly from Mombasa. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for calling us. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for the doctor.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to know, there is a kind of diabetes that is generated from drugs like steroids.
Okay.
Now, what I wanted to know is, if at all somebody is taking steroids and your blood sugar tends not to be normal, what is somebody supposed to do? Because there are some drugs which when you take, it shoots your blood sugar, not that you have diabetes, but it gives you the symptoms same to the person who has diabetes. So what are you supposed to do in that case?
All right, okay. And you're talking about drugs. Are we talking about contraception?
No, steroids.
Okay.
This is normally a drug that is given to patients who have some diseases which cannot be treated by this normal medicine. For instance, like somebody who has a problem with platelets. Now you give a steroid to generate your platelets. Now, when you take a bigger dose, it tends to give your blood sugar to rise up. So what are you supposed to do in such a case?
All right. Thank you so much, Neely. Stay on the line for your answer. All right?
Okay. I had mentioned when we were talking about the types of diabetes, I said other types of diabetes.
All right.
And mentioned about the diabetes that come due to medications. So we call them medication-induced diabetes.
All right.
And as she's saying, steroids. We give steroids for many, issues. And the steroids are known to make our blood sugars to go haywire. So actually what we do is that when we introduce someone on steroids, we actually advise them. And in fact, it's a prerequisite for them to actually go home with a blood glucose meter to make sure they're monitoring their blood sugar. So the first thing, Nelly, to do is to make sure that you have a blood glucose meter where you can be able to monitor your blood sugar home. Okay. And I'm also very sure that the physician who, introduced steroids to them may have mentioned this to them because it is expected. And we even tell them straight that we expect that your blood sugar may go high. Now, depending with the period of steroids, because there are those we give longer duration of period, there are a shorter period. So as far as is, very long periods of time, and your sugars are getting out of control, then that means they need to go back to their doctor so that they can be prescribed for medicine that would stabilize the blood sugar. Okay. But if they're taking very low doses of steroids and they're not, lifting their blood sugar to very high levels, which needs or requires medicine, their doctors would be able to advise them. Okay. And also depending on the duration, because someone is only taking steroids for like 1 week, so it may not really have a very adverse effect. It may lift their blood sugar that very 1 week, but after it has been reduced and stopped, maybe after 1 month their blood sugar might, come back to normal. But for those who are taking very high doses and their blood sugar is going up very high, they need to go back to their doctor and tell the doctor, my blood sugar is going high, what should I do? Then the doctor is going to do, to check how the blood sugar has been and then prescribe to them either a tablet or prescribe insulin depending with where the blood sugars are.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. And then we also have another caller from Busia. Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, how are you? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for calling us from Wisia. I do have a question in regards to to today's topic.
Repeat. Pardon.
Do you have a question in regards to today's topic?
Yes.
All right, go
My
ahead.
question is about the, I would like to ask that I have a grandfather who is sick from diabetes,
Okay.
and sometimes his legs are usually swollen. And now I wanted the doctor to answer my question. Why? What's the reason why the legs swell because of that?
Why the? Did you get that? Okay, we didn't get your question clearly. Can you repeat the question for us?
I have a grandfather
Okay.
who is sick, suffering from diabetes,
Okay.
and sometimes the legs usually swell. I, I want to, I want the doctor to answer my question why the legs usually swell due to diabetes.
Okay. The leg usually swells. Okay. All right.
Okay. So how old is he? Probably, if you would know.
Is he still on the line? All right. Okay, we
Okay.
lost him, but yeah, just in general.
Okay, so it depends with, how old is he then. Then the other question I would have wanted to know, how long has he had diabetes?
Okay.
Then I would also want to know the control. How has his blood sugars been
Being controlled.
over the time?
All right.
And also, is he taking some medications or not? Either tablets or injections. Is he taking them? Because if he's having leg swellings, there could be other problems, what we call the complications of diabetes.
Okay.
And so those are some of the things. That's why I would want to have those questions answered. And the best thing would be that he would need to go to see a doctor so that they be looked at their kidneys, first of all.
All right. They're saying he's 96.
96,
96 years.
96 old.
Okay.
So probably they would want to go and be check the kidney and also to make sure that it's not the heart, because also again, remember the heart can make our foot swell
swell.
and leg swell.
Yeah.
So those are two things that they would really want to go and be checked, because diabetes in itself can give us a complication of what you call kidney, diabetes kidney disease. And if someone has diabetes kidney disease, then they might, because of retention of water,
Yes,
they
in
might
the
swell
body.
on their legs. Again, if someone has got a major heart disease, like congestive heart disease, what you call congestive heart disease, then again they can have swelling of the leg. So the advice would be that they take him to the hospital to a good physician where he can be checked,
Okay.
and then they be ruled out some of these particular issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So go to hospital as soon as possible.
Soon
All right,
as
and
possible.
rule out some of these
Yes,
other things.
yes.
Okay. All right. Now back to diabetes.
Yes.
Is it type 2 or type 2?
Yes.
That is usually more prone, especially someone in their 40s.
Yes.
So my question is, why the 40-year marker?
Why the 40 year?
Yes.
Okay, so you 40 year is attributed to this many other things. You realize that it is the age many of us are settling down.
True.
Okay, they say life
Life
begins at
starts
40,
at 40.
and many of us now are earning well.
All right.
I can be able to buy myself many things. I can be able to eat the best of things that we look at, hamburger, I don't know what, all these things.
Which are not necessarily good for you. Okay.
And so you realize that that very particular age is when people are really settling down and they also having a lot of income generation. And also it's the most part that we are very busy. So business versus I'm also able to do now what I was not able to do when I didn't have enough
money.
cash to do
Okay.
that. So this will
All right.
attribute to us becoming inactive, obesity sets in, overweight, high blood pressure comes in because also stress at work. Because of our bad eating habits, we get high cholesterol that predisposes us or makes us to have a higher risk of diabetes.
Okay.
So that very age, 35, 40, so that's a discussion around
Okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. So it's just that you're comfortable in life and okay, you can afford some of the things and which are not necessarily good for you sometimes.
yes.
Okay. But it's good to have them.
good.
The key is ensure that take regular exercises,
Yeah, exactly.
watch your diet
Yes.
and all that.
Yes.
All right. And avoid obesity because can lead to diabetes.
Yeah.
All right, and then there's also the aspect of type 2 diabetes being progressive.
Yes.
And so I might be like, okay, so what exactly does that mean, and how will diabetes affect my whole body?
Okay, so we say type 2 diabetes is progressive.
Okay.
And this is what we mean. When you've looked at all these things that we've discussed that are major contributors to diabetes,
Okay.
they affect the very cells that produce insulin,
Okay.
which is a hormone that human being cannot live without.
True.
Now, these cells that produce insulin, they go reducing in terms of their function.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a slow progressive process.
Okay.
Usually the studies that have been done, they have shown that by the time someone is presenting to us as a first initial step, the function of these cells has been reducing in terms of its function almost over 12 years ago.
Okay.
But you see, at the time they presented to us. So there's a theory of this may have started over 10
long
years
time,
ago.
yeah.
So it is not an issue that happened
No.
yesterday
Okay.
and then today you presented. And so after that, by the time someone is coming to us, almost 50% of these cells have reduced in terms of their function.
Okay.
And so largely this person will be depending on the other 50% that is remaining. Now, depending with the presenting factors they come with, if someone has obesity, insulin resistance sets in. Now, insulin resistance in itself would cause the blood sugar to go up. So you have two issues, insulin resistance and high blood sugar alongside here. Now, that environment in the body is also not good for these cells again. So it comes a double tragedy that again causes further destruction for even the other ones that were remaining.
Okay.
So high blood sugar, high environment of high blood sugar that has been caused by insulin resistance, which had been contributed by even high weight that we have in our body, further causes all this.
All right.
So the major cause of progression, it is the reduction of the failure of these particular cells that produce insulin.
All right.
And even at some point they go and reduce their mass. And so and that's why we say it's a slow progression.
Okay.
It's a slow progression.
All
It's not
right.
something that happens now.
And you notice
yes.
it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's important, like we said earlier on, to get screened at least once.
Yes.
Once in a year.
Yeah.
It's important. All right. Now let's talk about how diabetes, either type 1, type 2, or even gestational, affects our body. Does it affect the kidneys? Does it affect our heart or anything like that?
So high blood sugar in the body affects almost every area of the body, if you would count.
All right.
And that's why we talk about good control, so that every molecule of blood sugar that you get from the meal that you eat, the ugali, the cassavas, the chapatis, all these things that we eat, is necessary for your body
Okay.
and needs to be burned, gotten into the cells so that it can be burned, and the result is that you are energetic.
Yeah.
Now, if that process is not happening and you have a lot of blood sugar roaming within your blood, then it will affect, one, the very small blood vessels, because our bodies has got large blood vessels and others very small, even others very minute.
Okay.
And so all these can be affected. So when it affects the very small, minute blood vessels, that's where we begin to get issues like kidney disease. That's where we begin to get issues like strokes.
Okay.
That's where we begin to get issues like erectile dysfunction or sexual dysfunction for both male and female.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you come to larger vessels, then you go to the heart. So we get heart attacks. Okay. We even get hypertension. So if someone didn't have hypertension by the time they're being diagnosed by or with diabetes type 2, then we always tell them they have to monitor their blood pressure because we know that their vessels are affected and are largely affected, especially if they don't keep good control, and so they can get high blood pressure. And so alongside now other issues that our nerves also get affected. When your nerves get affected, you lose what we call protective sensation. And so I can step on fire and walk around fire or sharp objects and I don't feel them.
Okay.
I'll only discover I have a large wound or I am bleeding. Yeah, so, and also our skin get affected. And our eyes also, they get affected. And also our food pipe, all the way to the stomach, it can get affected, and largely because the nerves around the stomach get affected, and then the movement of the gut gets slow. Okay. So all these areas that get affected in the body. So actually, if you look at it, it's actually almost the whole body.
The whole body.
And then also now the issue is that it becomes harder for you to heal. So immunity goes down. And then again, healing process like wound, you also get prone to infections. So all these are issues that get, how the body gets affected when you have diabetes.
Okay, and of course we have some people who are already diabetic, either with type 1, type 2, or even gestational. And they're listening to you, you know how the body gets affected. And they're like, wow, okay, so what can I do to, let's say, reverse in the sense that at least make sure that my blood vessels are okay, so that my heart and my kidneys and even the eyes, does not get affected. So when it comes to proper control and managing of diabetes, what would you have to say to those of us who are watching us and are already diabetic?
So for those who are diabetes, we embark on what you call diabetes management. And it involves many things. One, the key for you to know what diabetes is important. Now that comes through intensive diabetes education, which has to be given by your diabetes doctor or your diabetes nurse educator, whom you sit regularly together and walk alongside with them. They help you understand what diabetes is, what it can do to your body, what control would help you do. Because control at the end of the day, this is what we look at, is that you have good control of a good quality of life, and then you have good adherence to medication, and at the end of the day, you are productive and change of behavior. Because if today I knew I have diabetes, but I still continue with smoking, then I have not changed behavior. I still stand in not a good place for controlling my diabetes, even though I know. So change of behavior. So diabetes education is key. Important. It's key. So you have to get to your doctor, they sit down with you, they explain all these things, they explain what is insulin, they explain the medication they're giving to you, how they work, why they have given you those medications. And all these, the physicians are ready to do that, to talk to you and help you understand that. The other thing we have to, they need to do is to make sure that they are monitoring their blood glucose at home. Now, this is usually the notion. When someone is given the medicine and they measure their blood sugar for 1 month, 2 months, they see, now it has come back to normal. Now they say, no, my diabetes is gone. Now, it's good to understand that once we have pronounced that you live with diabetes, we cannot reverse that. I know there is a lot of hype within town, reversing diabetes, bringing it back to normal or healing about diabetes. But for sure, from our perspective, we have not come to the place where we have cure for diabetes. So I cannot clearly eliminate diabetes. And that's why we talk of living with diabetes. So, and that's why measuring and monitoring at home is key. But then it is individualized, because if I am taking tablets, I am not going to monitor the same way someone who is injecting will monitor. For someone using injection, their monitoring is more regular or many times than person who is using tablets. So like someone using tablets, they might do like 2 times in a day. The one using injection might do 4 even to 6 in a day. For someone who is, expecting and they have diabetes, they even do even 6, even to 8 times in a day. Just making sure that they're looking at their blood sugar.
Okay.
So, and we do that so that they make sure that they are capturing when their blood sugar is going out of control.
Okay.
So monitoring, and then diet, very important.
Okay.
Physical activities.
Yes.
It's very important for that. Psychological management, stress management, all these are things put together. So it is not only one side thing.
Yes.
It's not medicine alone.
Okay.
And that's what we run for. We only go for medicine, but we forget that we are stressed. We don't know how to manage stress. We forget that I need to be checking my blood sugar regularly. We forget that I need to eat the way I'm supposed to.
Yes.
We also forget that after I've taken medicine for 1 month, I think it is gone.
No,
and I'm
it's not.
supposed to be taking this medicine, and I stop.
For your life, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's important. All right, and you also talked about exercises. It's important, so to exercise regularly, of course, to ensure that you're okay in always and maintain a weight that is recommended. All right, but now let's talk about diabetes and vitamin D.
Okay.
All right, why is vitamin D so important? And then again, we'll also talk about treatment, where you talked about the injection and the tablets. What determines whether I should take tablets and not injection, or vice versa?
Okay, so vitamin D is very crucial in our body. It is actually associated with many factors.
Okay.
In fact, they say it's attributed to more than 200 diseases actually, and it's because of its role in the body. Partly because of its contribution to immunity, and when it comes to diabetes, largely because of its direct and indirect involvement in insulin secretion and sensitivity. So that's why we are very keen to looking into vitamin D in the body. Okay, we know it as vitamin D, but ourselves we know it as a hormone.
All right. Okay.
And it is largely produced by the body.
All
So
right.
the body is the major producer of that, but the sun has to help it span it. And that's why it's very important for all of us every day, at least 30 minutes, either in the morning around 10, 11, or in the evening, 4 p.m.
When
there.
it's not too
bask
hot.
a little bit, bask a little bit and expose your body. Don't bask when you're in suit like me.
Okay. What
So
do you mean expose your body, like
You have to expose, at least your hands have to be exposed.
All right.
If you can be able to expose, your back,
Okay.
your legs, okay? So at least, expose your a good part of your, skin, so that it can be able to be spun.
Okay. All right. And very briefly, because we need to end the show right now, 30 seconds treatments. All right. You talked about injectables and tablets.
Yes.
Yeah. Briefly talk about that.
Okay. So it is individualized. So when you come, we don't treat you like your sister or your colleague at work. So we look at you. How long have you had diabetes? How old are you? What other diseases alongside with are you working with? Then alongside with other tests that we do that determine whether to give you tablet or injection. So there are some tests we do to determine that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Festus, thank you so much for coming over today and, of course, helping us understand diabetes, some of the complications, symptoms, and I'm pretty sure now the people watching us have a better understanding of what diabetes is all about. So thank you so much. All right. So that was Festus. That is the diabetes nurse educator.
Yes.
All right. And giving us all the information that we need on diabetes. So on that note, we have to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for staying with us. I believe that all your questions have been answered in regards to diabetes, but the takeaway message is get screened at least once a year. It's very important. But then again, ensure that your lifestyle, because most of these conditions that we've talked about recently on My Doctor have been on hypertension, obesity, and all this contributes to some of these other conditions. So it's very important for you to ensure that your lifestyle is healthy. My name is Winnie Lubamba, and of course, on behalf of our amazing team who made the show a success, we wish you a lovely day ahead. Goodbye for now. We'll see you tomorrow.